Welcome to this episode of the Civil War Digital Digest. I'm your host, Jeremy, and I'm here with Brian James Egen. And he works at the Henry Ford, and today at the Henry Ford, we're at Firestone Farm, that's part of Greenfield Village. And I'm really excited today because we're getting a tour of a 19th century cold room. You ready?
That's right. It's a room within the cellar. First, we got to open the door.
All right, perfect. Let's get started. Well, we're in the cold room, and it is cold in here. So, Brian, let's start with, tell me, what is the cold room, its purpose, and why is it so cold in here?
A cold room is a designated room in the cellar of your home that generally had four walls. One of the walls was to the outside because you'd have a window that you could keep open to allow the cold temperature from outside to seep into the cellar. Think of it this way. Your cold room is like a refrigerator.
Okay.
So that's exactly what a cold room's for. So when you're going to be curing your meats, a ham may take 6 to 8 weeks to cure. So during that time period, you want to keep it refrigerator temperatures. And so generally speaking, the temperature that's outside, late fall, early winter, through your 6 to 8 weeks period, you're going to be guaranteed nice, cool temperatures to allow your meat to cure.
So we got the windows over there out to the outside. There's some bars on there, so probably to keep animals out. Prop the window open during the cold months with the door closed, and then in the summer months, closing that then to help control it.
Yeah, in the summer months you could close the outside window, and again, that may be just to keep, some moisture and maybe some other bugs and stuff out. Yeah, so generally speaking, if you see an old home, you look for a cellar window, they're going to have the wooden bars or even, iron bars that helps keep, rodents and animals from getting in.
All right. Well, besides the temperature, the thing that hit me as soon as we swung that door open is the wonderful smell that's going on in here.
Well, you are a man from the past because many people would say, oh, what is that odor? But yes, what you're predominantly smelling here is the cure. It's the salt sugar cure. That's the predominant flavor that you smell, flavor in the air, if you will. The 19th century reminiscences of people that had experienced this life of cold rooms and butcherings, they would describe the smells of a cellar, especially a cold room where you'd have things in brine solution. You'd have cucumbers in vinegar, the vinegar barrel, sauerkraut smells, the earth smell of a bin with sawdust with potatoes in it and crates of apples. But the predominant smell was the curing process, the
meats,
the salt sugar cure.
Earlier, we did some episodes with you on that curing process with some bacon, and so let's just start talking about the meats that's in here with all the wonderful things. Let's get started on what's on the table here next to us.
So what's on the table here next to us are the hams. The slab bacon, that has already been cured and hung up around us, as you can see here. But the hams, because they're larger cuts of meat, are going to take a little bit more time to fully cure. So what you're seeing on the table here are the hams that are packed and covered with the salt, sugar, dry rub. And as you can see, it's only in the exposed meat areas here because this is probably the third application of this salt. So the majority of the meat, juices, and water has been extracted. So you're really only going to concentrate now on the exposed flesh areas.
And then they'd be hung up,
That's
much
right.
like the bacon?
That's right. You would then put it in a muslin or cheesecloth sack, hang it up in your cold room. And in essence, it's fully cured. So these pieces of meat, your hams, they would last indefinitely in a cool, dry environment, which the cold room was.
Hams are going to be hanging up here then with the bacon. Probably won't be able to just walk through. You're going to be dodging some hams around. So, and there's quite a bit of ham here. Use of the ham versus the bacon.
A full larder is the goal, and a full larder being the cold room is you're going to have, all your meats hung up. It's going to be packed, more or less. And then throughout the year, if you wanted to use a particular cut of meat, and generally meat was consumed 3 times a day, a ham. Today we think of it as just a big special occasion you would have a ham. But the way they looked at it in the 19th century is a ham is just a big piece of cured meat. So on a daily basis, if you wanted a piece of meat, mom or whoever would come down and cut off of a piece from a ham to serve for your meal or for your family that day. Now, if you had a big occasion where you had a lot of people to feed, of course you're going to need more meat. So therefore, the whole ham. But a ham is just a giant piece of cured meat, a source that you can go and cut off what you need on a daily basis.
All right, a delicious piece of cured meat.
Yes.
So what do we have going on here on the left side?
In these crocks here on the table, we have pickles, piccalilli, and other items that you would store in like a brine solution. You could also keep your meat or cure your meat in brine solution in larger crocks. But for a family throughout the whole year, after your harvest, you're going to want to, pickle a lot of your items too to help extend them through the whole year.
So we got the meat hanging up. Now we have vegetables and vinegar brines and different things across here in the crocks.
That's right. And a lot of families, especially of a German ancestry, if you will, sauerkraut was a big component, which is basically cabbage that's been fermented into the sauerkraut. And that was also a predominant smell and something that you would have to take care of periodically. And you want nice, cool temperatures for that too. And of course, you have bins with sawdust that you could keep potatoes and some other similar root crop vegetables, potatoes, even apples could be stored this way as well.
All right, so another way to preserve throughout the year. And so we got hanging meats, we have crocks of vegetables, we have sauerkraut fermenting, we have bins filled with root vegetables and apples. Well, what's behind us?
Behind us, it's an old cupboard. We were talking earlier that this predates the Civil War time period, and during the Civil War it probably would have been upstairs in the kitchen, but since we're 1880s at Firestone Farm, it's relegated to the cellar. So a good frugal family would have put up a lot of their own preserves, even canned meats as well. But here we have a selection that was preserved over the summer here at Firestone Farm from things that were grown in our kitchen garden here. The whole cellar would have probably been filled with these type of preserves, not just the cold room.
So I know at Firestone we interpret 1880. We focus a lot on 1860.
Right.
A little bit of time difference there. Is there anything about this room that maybe we want to touch on that could be a little bit different in those 20 years besides maybe just the piece of furniture?
What you see in the cold room from the 1880s, 1860s and before, it's pretty much ubiquitous through the mid-19th century. The same elements of a curing table and slab bacon and your hams and then hanging up on a larder, you're going to see that in row homes in the 1860s, where you get into the minutia of things. And, canning was popular in the 1860s as well, but some of the lid technology and the rubber seals, that's something after Civil War, you started seeing changes in that. So for what you see here is spot on, I think, for a mid-19th century interpretation.
And some delicious items that are in these canned goods. See, like candied citron used for all sorts of different baking pieces and all sorts of fruits and jams and apple butter, pumpkin butter.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you, Brian, so much for the tour of this 19th century cold room. Thank you, everyone at Civil War Digital Digest, watching our episodes, sharing them out, contributing in so many ways, like through Patreon. We appreciate all of you, and we hope that you appreciated this episode. I'm your host, Jeremy, and we'll see you next time.